Chapter 47. By the time Sig arrived home from Europe, he had decided what he wanted to do when he got big. He was already 6 feet, 4 inches in height. I'm going into the travel business. While in Munich, he had bought a Volkswagen Bug, and he and his friends, besides visiting Freya, drove around Germany, Austria, and Italy. On the way home, they drove to Norway and shipped the car and came home on the ship Oslofjord. They disembarked in New York and drove across the country. For me, his most welcome comment was that he felt good about the family Freya had married into. He began encouraging me to go visit Freya, assuring me that I would receive a warm welcome, and told me that a classmate of his wanted to accompany me. It was the first time I had heard about Kay, his Swedish-American girlfriend. On August 7th, 1965, Sig drove Kay and me to Seattle, where we caught the train to Vancouver, BC. From there, we caught the Canadian Pacific train, which took us across Canada to Montreal. We spent the night there, and in the morning, boarded a Greek ship, the QSS Arcadia, for the trip down the St. Lawrence River and across the Atlantic. Kay and I hit it off from the start and participated in the many activities aboard the ship. We were amazed at the multitudes of shapes, sizes, and colors of people. We ate with a diverse group: English, American, Italian, Greek. The only grump among us was a German. The waiters all fell in love with Kay. On her birthday, they brought her a beautiful cake. We understood why the travel agent had suggested, "The American and British ships are cleaner and more modern, but if you want an unusual experience, take a foreign ship." Church services on board were unlike any we had ever witnessed. I realized how limited had been my outlook. From the time I had been converted, I had considered only 2 kinds of people in the world: Baptists and heathens. According to their complexion, Baptists were light and heathens dark. My perspective had been widened somewhat when I had gone to the Catholic Church in Gresham. Not to Mass or confession, but to confirmation classes. It came about after I told Walt, my business acquaintance, about my distress of Freya marrying a Catholic. He had replied, "All you know about the Catholics is what the Baptists have told you. Why don't you go to a Catholic church and see what they say?" Actually, I knew more about the Catholic Church than what the Baptists had told me. Much of Corey's work was on Catholic churches and schools, repointing the brickwork, caulking windows, and coating roofs. Their clergy were always a pleasure to deal with. They were reasonable, faithful in fulfilling their contracts. As Corey said, they were our best customers. To my amazement, during the class, I concluded that the Catholics held basically the same beliefs as the Baptists, beliefs set forth in the Apostles' Creed. Of course, there were other beliefs, and many works. But wasn't it the Baptist Church that persistently proclaimed a person is saved by faith and not by works? On the last night aboard the ship, Kay and I entered the talent contest. I played the accordion, and Kay was my assistant. We won a bottle of wine. Neither of us drank, but it gave us a gift to take to Freya's in-laws, the Bertholds. The next morning we sailed into Cork, Ireland, Le Havre, France, London, England, and Amsterdam, where we disembarked. After spending 3 days there, we took the train to Munich. Our visit was bittersweet. Kay and I stayed in an apartment in Munich, while Freya, Louis, and the babies stayed in their summer home in Gauding. It was a long and complicated ride on the streetcar for Kay and me. Complicated because of the language barrier. It seemed that the conductors were always yelling at us because we didn't signal our desire to get off in time. Little Sigrid and Eric were so darling, and Freya often had them dressed in Bavarian clothes. They were a handful, so little and so close in age. We were often entertained by the Berthold family. They were so gracious and good to us, and I was reassured. I could not have asked for better in-laws for my daughter. But oh, it was so cold. I coughed a lot and was having difficulty swallowing, and though I didn't express my fears to anyone, I was certain that my throat problems were returning. I had gone to the doctor for examinations on a fairly regular basis since the operation, but after the checkups and x-rays, I was always reassured everything was fine. But I knew better. Kay left for Finland on September 5th to visit relatives and then travel home. I became so lonely. I was torn between my desire to stay and spend what time I could with Freya and the babies and going home to Corey and the boys. The fear of cancer kept pressing down on me. I kept thinking I might never see my German family again. Just the thought of the expense of trips to Europe. My return had been booked for October on the Italian liner Cristoforo Colombo. But on September 13th, I felt so overwhelmed I called the shipping agent and booked an earlier passage. When I went out to the little summer place and told Freya, she begged me not to go. It was one of the most difficult moments of my life. I will never forget that morning when I left Freya and her 2 babies and walked to the streetcar in the rain. When I arrived back home, I was ill. I went to the doctor, and once again, I was told that my throat was okay, but I'd caught a gum disease on the Italian liner, and it wouldn't clear up, so I had to have my upper front teeth removed and a partial made. I went back to the real estate office. I found it hard to be enthused about showing properties. I took over about 20 rentals that the office managed. I bought 2 more rental houses, and with Corey's help, I cleaned them up, redecorated them, and rented them out, but I wasn't sure I should continue on that path. Surprisingly, Corey did not share my interest in buying rentals. It simply added to his overload of work. Our new house that we had worked on for so long, always with the idea of providing a happy home for our family, now seemed empty. Everyone was busy. Sig was in college living on campus, playing basketball. It was obvious that he and Kay had marriage in mind. Eric was just entering high school, playing football, and had advanced from the freshman team to the junior varsity. Nothing on my horizon seemed worthwhile. I thought about going back to college and getting my degree in music so that I could teach in the public schools. But it seemed like too much of a long-term project.